Magic the Gathering has been around for 25 years and has affected the lives of millions of people in the gaming realm. In that time, many players have debated on which cards have been the best throughout its history. My name is Coach from the Card Bazaar, and in these videos, we'll be going over the 100 cards that have had the best performances in the history of Magic the Gathering. From Alpha to Dominaria, we break down the sets and let the numbers take care of the rest. So to start off, let's go over how we attempted to do this. Looking through numerous lists using multiple search engines, we start off by listing cards from different top lists that included Channel Fireball, ManaElite.com, MTG Goldfish, and EDHREC, among a few other lists as well. There were also Magic YouTubers that we watched to also compile a list, most notably Nizzahon Magic, who does numerous top 10 videos on the best cards in specific categories. If you'd like to check him out after this video, make sure to click on the link in the video description to check out his channel now, and be sure to subscribe for more top 10 videos. So after we compiled a list of over 300 cards, we then create a point system to objectively grade and rank each of these cards. Measurements that we wanted to look at were how cards did in different constructed formats and how frequently these cards top 8 in professional events. Using the website MTGtop8.com, we can see different results of professional competitions that include events such as Star City Games, Nationals, Pro Tours, Grand Prix, and World Competitions, along with a few other competitions over the years. We also looked at 5 specific constructed formats: Standard, Extended, Modern, Legacy, and Vintage. If a card topped 8 at a Standard event, it would receive 1 point for each top 8 inclusion. For a card that topped 8 in an Extended or Modern format, a card would receive 2 points, and for the Eternal formats Legacy and Vintage, a card would receive 3 points for its top 8 inclusions. On top of that, we also gave 1 additional point for each top 8 between the 5 formats in an effort to reward the card's play frequency. Play frequency for us means that how many times did it actually show up in top 8 professional events. For example, if a card like Restoration Angel top 8 a total of 50 times between all the formats, it would receive 50 points on top of its score accumulated from each individual format that we previously mentioned. One more thing that we will mention is that if a particular card cycle has numerous top cards in it, such as the Beta Dual Lands, we will place the highest card of the cycle in a ranked position and show the average score that the cycle received. Now that we have all that out of the way, let's jump into the list and see if some of your favorite cards made our list. Number 100. MISHRA'S Factory. The first card on our list came from one of the oldest expansions Magic had, Antiquities. This land card went with the artifact theme of the set as it offered multiple uses in one card by providing mana and having the ability to temporarily become a creature. While it did not see lots of inclusion in the Standard and Extended format of its time, it has seen the most inclusion in the Legacy format as it's mostly been part of Callblade and Landstill decks. The most recent printing this card has had was in Masters 25, and you could get a copy for under 50 cents. Number 99. LLANOWAR Waste. While the entire paint cycle scored an average in the high 100s, which had inclusions like Cave of Koilos and Yavimaya Coast, LLANOWAR Waste was the card that stood out the most in our scoring system. While it did have some top 8 inclusions in Modern and Extended, it was a hugely important land card in the Standard format when it was included in Elf decks back in 2007 and 2008, and made a comeback in 2014 when it was part of many Abzan strategies. Sadly though, it will most likely not be long before it gets knocked out of this list, as it does not see any play in the Eternal formats. However, during its time in Standard, it was one of the most important cards of the time. Number 98. SUBMERGE. This blue card printed in the Nemesis expansion did not have a huge impact when it first came out. Between Standard and the Extended format, it received only a total of 9 top 8 finishes in professional competitions. However, it would find a home in the Legacy format around 2010, as it is a great sideboard choice for many decks such as Delver and Canadian Threshold. Also, as far as pricing goes, just like MISHRA'S Factory, it is also under 50 cents as well. Number 97. Knight of the Reliquary. This is the first creature card on our list and came out of the Conflux expansion. In terms of performance, it received around the same number of top 8s in the Standard format, the Modern format, and the Extended format at around 9 to 11 top 8 placings. But just like SUBMERGE, it would not gain lots of traction until it found a home in the Legacy format where it would be part of decks such as Zoo and Dark Horizons. One of this card's most recent inclusions was part of the Modern deck called Bant Nightfall, where it got to the semifinals at Grand Prix Phoenix in March of 2018. Number 96. GIDEON Ally of ZENDIKAR. Within this top 100 list, there are only 3 Planeswalkers on here. GIDEON Ally of ZENDIKAR is one of them. GIDEON Ally of ZENDIKAR is one of the most recent cards to make the list as it was printed in the expansion Battle for Zendikar. So far, between Modern, Legacy, and Vintage, it had a total of 14 top 8 finishes, but this card made a very large impact in the Standard format of its time. This card had a total of 153 top 8 finishes in professional competitions and made significant waves in its entire time in Standard. Along with that, before GIDEON was rotated out of the format, it was a huge part of many Mardu vehicle decks of 2017 during the expansions of Kaladesh and Aether Revolt. Number 95, Remand. Ravnica City of Guilds saw the printing of a decent soft counterspell. At a mana cost of 2 to bounce back a spell and draw a card, this spell was highly efficient for delaying an opponent in the early game and drawing more into your deck. Remand has also seen the most success in the modern format with almost 100 top 8 inclusions, along with also having limited top 8 success in Standard and Extended. It even had one top 8 inclusion in the Vintage format, where it's part of the deck known as Almost Blue back in the year 2013. Remand has also seen reprints in the dual decks Jace vs. Vraska and the set Modern Masters 2015. And if you want to pick up paper copies of this instant spell, copies of this card go for around $6 to $7 each. Number 94, Wear and Tear. Wear and Tear is the only split card that made the list, along with being the only card from the Dragon Maze expansion as well. It can destroy an enchantment, an artifact, or do both, making it a pretty versatile spell. While it was only included in 6 top 8 decks during its time in Standard, it saw the most success in the modern format just like Remand did. Wear and Tear was part of 70 top 8 inclusions and was part of Is It Aggro and the notorious Affinity. Wear and Tear also saw 23 top 8 finishes in the Legacy format and 11 top 8 finishes in the Vintage format, making it a well-versed spell overall. Copies of Wear and Tear right now go for about $2. Number 93, Mana Crypt. Mana Crypt was not originally printed in an expansion and was for some time printed as a promotional card. It was a zero-cost artifact that can give you 2 mana with a bit of a drawback. As far as its play history, it didn't first see a professional top 8 finish until 2011. However, it obtained 90 top 8 finishes in Vintage, with Mana Crypt being part of decks such as Mud and Ravager shops. This card would later be printed again in the set Eternal Masters with new artwork, and if you want a copy of this card, be ready to pay $120 per copy. Number 92, Phantasmal Image. With the arrival of the core set Magic 2012, also saw the arrival of the blue creature Phantasmal Image. Essentially a cheaper and weaker copy of the card clone, this card still heavily impacted the Standard format, whereas part of many Delver decks at the time, and was an inclusion in 126 top 8 decks. Even though it played off a few of the blue cards from the Innistrad expansion, it was also included in a fair amount of modern decks, and even saw appearances in a few top Legacy and Vintage Merfolk decks. This card would be reprinted again in Modern Masters 2017, and at the time of this recording, this card costs about $9 for each copy. Number 91, Thrun the Last Troll. Green creatures are, in most cases, known for their raw power and toughness compared to the other creatures of Magic. For this Mirrodin Besieged card, Thrun the Last Troll was no exception. At 4 converted mana costs, the power to regenerate, hexproof, and where the creature can't be countered, it can become quite a chore to permanently take out this card. It was a powerful card when it showed up in the Standard format, as it was part of many Kessick and green-white aggro decks. This card was not limited to Standard, however, because it was included in 48 top 8 modern decks, 17 top 8 legacy decks, and even showed up in 1 top 8 vintage deck as well. As of right now, it has only been printed in Mirrodin Besieged, and the card goes for about $16 on the secondary market. Number 90, Stony Silence. The first enchantment that made our list, and a card that essentially shuts down most artifacts. Stony Silence came out of one of the best sets in Magic's history, Innistrad, but it did not see immediate impact in the Standard format that some other Innistrad cards saw. It did essentially make a huge success in the modern format when it accumulated 97 top 8 finishes and was included in one of the most notable deck styles of that time, which is Eldrazi Aggro back in 2016. Other results that Stony Silence saw was that it had 4 top 8 finishes in the Legacy format and 14 top 8 placings in Vintage. On top of that, it has made frequent appearances in many Commander decks as a way to shut down the many artifact cards that opposing players have. This card, just like Phantasmal Image, was also printed again in Modern Masters 2017 and is priced anywhere around $6 to $7. Number 89, Mox Opal. The legendary artifact that came out of the Scars of Mirrodin expansion. If the prerequisites were met, it could simulate all of the original Moxen from Limited Edition Alpha, which was the very first set of Magic. Mox Opal saw significant play when it hit the Standard scene by being an inclusion in 30 top 8 decks, along with a few top 8 inclusions in both of the Eternal formats. It was also included in 81 top 8 professional decks and made appearances in decks such as Affinity, 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 and Affinity, and maybe some Lantern control decks. But everyone remembers Affinity. Mox Opal was definitely a staple card in what is considered to be the most powerful deck style to ever be created. It It was reprinted again in the COLONNADE expansion as one of the promotional invention cards, and right now, Mox Opal goes for around $100. Number 88, TREETOP Village. Just like the first entry on our list, MISHRA'S Factory, TREETOP Village is able to produce mana and become a creature until the end of the turn. Unlike MISHRA'S Factory, it does have the drawback of coming into the battlefield tapped. That did not, however, stop TREETOP Village from making a big splash in the turn of its setting. TREETOP Village would see significant amount of play in Standard and Extended, along with seeing the most success in the Modern format as it was part of many Jund strategies. Unfortunately, it has yet to see any top 8 finishes in the Legacy and Vintage formats. TREETOP Village was first printed in Urza's Legacy and would get reprinted in the Core Set 10th edition, along with being part of multiple dual deck products. Copies of TREETOP Village are currently being sold for about $1 per card. Number 87, Celestial Colonnade. Coming out of the expansion Worldwake, Celestial Colonnade was part of the cycle called the Dual Allied Manlands. While MISHRA'S Factory and TREETOP Village are also considered manlands, Celestial Colonnade had the option of tapping for one of 2 colors and can become a 4/4 flying creature with Vigilance. During its time in Standard, it totaled in at 107 top 8 finishes, with this card also being an inclusion in the winning deck of Pro Tour Paris in 2011. This card also saw a decent amount of success in Modern with 43 top 8 finishes, along with being an inclusion in 14 top 8 placing decks between Legacy and Extended. It has only been printed in the Worldwake expansion, but you can grab a copy of this card for around $51. Number 86, Phyrexian Metamorph. There were numerous cards from the new Phyrexian expansion that made this top 100 list overall. Phyrexian Metamorph is just the first one to appear on this list. It is essentially a more powerful version of Phantasmal Image, as it can target both creature and artifact alike, while also being able to have 25% of its mana being paid in life. When it came onto the Standard scene, it would be an inclusion in many aggro and birthing pod decks at the time, but it didn't stop this card from making an impact in other formats. It would also be part of quite a few top 8 Modern decks that ran Birthing Pod, but also saw 49 top 8 inclusions between the Eternal formats. This card currently sees play in the Vintage format, as it is part of the Ravager shop deck, and Phyrexian Metamorph is currently going for about $9 per copy. Number 85, NIHIL SPELLBOMB. Another Scars and Mirrodin favorite just like Mox Opal, this card is most notably known for being a big sideboard card against graveyard strategies. It has the ability to be sacrificed to remove cards from a particular graveyard, and the option of being able to draw a card if a small requirement was met. In the Standard format, it was a sideboard card in many zombie decks and was included in 46 top 8 decks in professional competitions. Recently, this card has seen much more play in Modern as it started to become a sideboard inclusion in Death Shadows decks and has since accumulated 33 top 8 finishes. It still doesn't stop there, however. NIHIL SPELLBOMB sees lots of inclusion in both of the Eternal formats, and in all, has acquired 27 top 8 finishes in the Legacy format and 19 top 8 finishes in Vintage. What is also nice about this card is that it has seen reprintings in Commander 2013, Commander 2017, and is also part of the Masters 25 set. On top of that, you can obtain this card for about 50 cents per copy. Number 84, Ancestral Recall. Quite arguably the most broken card ever printed, Ancestral Recall was one of the cards to be part of the very first set of Magic, Alpha. Card draw in the game is extremely important, and Ancestral Recall did that the best. For 1 blue mana, you're able to gain 3 cards and put them into your hand. Due to the powerful effects of the card, it was put to a stop real fast when it was in the Standard format. However, it has gained the most attention in Vintage since that is the only format it can be played in, and even in that format, you are only allowed to have 1 copy. In total, Ancestral Recall has seen a total of 92 top 8 finishes in this Eternal format, and has been included in decks such as Jeskai as recently as 2018. Good luck trying to find a paper copy of this card though, because the cheapest copy of Ancestral Recall is going for almost $2,000. Number 83, Time Walk. Another equally broken card is another blue spell called Time Walk. Just like Ancestral Recall, it was also part of the Alpha set, and both of these cards are part of the notorious Power 9. For 1 blue and 1 of any mana, you get to take another turn after you complete the current turn. In the same fashion as the previous card, it was also nixed extremely fast in Standard, but sees a good home in the Vintage format. Wherever Ancestral Recall was included, so was Time Walk. In total, it also contained 92 top 8 finishes in Vintage, but did it in less deck inclusions overall, which is why in score it barely scraped by the previous pick. While Time Walk is considered more affordable than Ancestral Recall, it is still going to cost you $1,200 per copy. Number 82, Aether Hub. A land that has garnered much attention in the Standard format of its time, it can give you not only 1 generic mana, but also has the ability to give you 1 mana of any color if you pay 1 energy. Coming out of the COLONNADE expansion, this card serves as a way to not only be a mana source, but to temporarily fix your mana as well for your deck colors. In the standard format, it has accumulated over 184 top 8 placings in professional settings, and has most notably been part of the deck's Temur and 4-color energy. Sadly, past that, it does not or has not seen any play outside of the standard format, with the exception of a few modern decks. Only time will tell if Aether Hub will remain on this list after it gets rotated out, but for the time it was in standard, it was an inclusion almost everywhere. Number 81, Soul Ring. Just like Time Walk and Ancestral Recall, this card came out of the first set of Magic. For 1 mana, this card is able to give you 2 generic mana and is one of the oldest mana accelerants to date. It was only included in 2 top 8 finishes when it was in standard, but has totaled almost 100 top 8 vintage placements, making Soul Ring at this time having more inclusions than the other alpha cards so far. It also does not need a specific mana color to be cast, which means it could theoretically be played in any deck style. Most notably, it has been part of Mud and Ravager Shop's deck like Mana Crypt, but can be seen in Oath of Druids decks as well. On top of that, it was reprinted again in Revised Edition in the mid-1990s, and was reprinted with new artwork and Commander products such as Commander 2011, 2014, and 2015. Soul Ring currently goes for just over $3 on the secondary market. Number 80, Strip Mine. Coming out of the second true expansion called Antiquities, this is the earliest card that had the capability of destroying a land, along with being able to produce generic mana as well. During its time in standard, it was included in a total of 17 top 8 decks, and it would later see a home in the vintage format as it would accumulate a total of 92 top 8 finishes in a 7-year period, with inclusions as recent as Ravager Shop decks. It did get reprinted again in the mid-1990s in the 4th edition core set, and would get reprinted again in Anthologies, From the Vault, and would even be a ZENDIKAR Expedition card. A paper copy of Strip Mine is currently going around $15. Number 79, Fatal Push. The most recent card on the list comes from the small expansion set of the Kaladesh block Aether Revolt. This black low-cost removal spell made significant impacts whenever it became tournament legal. For its time in standard, which as of the recording of this episode has not been rotated out yet, it was included in 109 top 8 finishes that included decks such as Mono Black Zombies and Mardu aggro decks. Fatal Push did not stop there, however. It would enter the modern format and easily become included in many deck styles as an efficient form of removal. It also has seen 10 top 8 finishes between Legacy and Vintage, with Fatal Push seeing its biggest home in 4-color control decks. As of right now, Fatal Push is just sitting around the $5 mark in the secondary market. Number 78, Maelstrom Pulse. Maelstrom Pulse is one of the 2 cards that came out of the expansion Alara Reborn. This card can destroy a non-land permanent and has the capability of destroying all permanents with the same name. In standard, it was widely seen in Jund decks as it was included in 25 top 8 decks. But in Modern, it had more than triple that number in the same deck style. The most recent inclusion was part of a winning deck during Pro Tour Rivals of Ixalan, where it was part of the deck Lantern Control. Other wins it was included in was also GP Chicago and GP Lion, which both happened back in 2012. In other formats, it was part of just 1 top 8 vintage deck, but saw 5 top 8 appearances in the extended format, along with 21 top 8 finishes in Legacy, where it is most notably associated with black, blue, green decks, also known as Bug. Maelstrom Pulse has seen reprints in the first Modern Master set, and is also an Amonkhet Invocation card. So far, you can get a copy of this card for about $25. Number 77, Leyline of the Void. With the release of the expansion Guild Pack saw the release of the card Leyline of the Void. This card was most known for being a powerful sideboard card against graveyard strategies, just like a previous top 100 card NIHIL SPELLBOMB. Leyline of the Void was actually part of 0 top 8 inclusions in the standard format of its time, but as time would go on with the second printing in the Magic 2011 core set, and as Modern became an official format in Magic the Gathering, Leyline of the Void would start to get some momentum going for it. In Modern, it was included in 15 top 8 decks alongside 20 top 8 decks for the extended format. However, Leyline of the Void would make an even bigger presence in the Eternal formats, as it was included in 31 top 8 vintage decks, and had the most success in Legacy, where it accumulated 45 top 8 placings. It has seen a home in decks such as Loam, Eldrazi Aggro, and most recently Dredge-based decks. Also, it's going to cost you about $30 to gain this powerful sideboard enchantment. Number 76, Serum Visions. Coming out of the last expansion of the Mirrodin block, 5th Dawn, Serum Visions is a low-cost blue spell that has the effect of drawing a card and then scrying the next 2 cards. While it looks fairly harmless to the average player, don't be fooled by its simple functions. When it was released in Standard, it was only included in 2 top 8 professional decks, but one of those decks was a second place Affinity deck in Worlds 2004. When it came to the Modern format though, it was heavily used in a vast number of different decks such as Storm and Twin. Basically, any deck that ran blue also ran Serum Visions. So far, it has accumulated a massive 126 top 8 inclusions and is still being used to this day. As far as the Eternal formats go though, it has a limited amount of success in Legacy and has yet to see top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format. Besides being printed in 5th Dawn, it was also printed in Conspiracy Take the Crown and Modern Masters 2017, with the price of this card going for about $3 per copy. Number 75, Dig Through Time. This is the only card that made our top 100 list to come out of the entire Cons block. While 8 mana may seem expensive in terms of CMC, the Delve mechanic alleviated up to 6 of those mana by exiling cards from your graveyard. By pulling 7 cards and keeping 2 of them, this gave players a significant advantage in terms of card draw. In the standard format of its time, it saw frequent play in Esper and Jeskai decks in a format that was dominated by Abzan. Dig Through Time was included in 75 top 8 decks, which is pretty good for its run in standard. Due to its power level and significant advantage a player can receive, however, it was banned in both Legacy and Modern, while also becoming restricted in Vintage, which in a way puts it in the same category as all of the Power 9 cards. Dig Through Time so far has seen a total of 47 top 8 finishes in the Vintage format and currently goes for about $1. Number 74, Ratchet Bomb. The third Scars and Mirrodin card on our list was an artifact card that was determined to destroy as many cards as it could. Ratchet Bomb had the effect of putting a charge counter each time it was tapped, but could be tapped and sacrificed to destroy each non-land permanent that had a CMC cost equal to the number of charge counters on it. Even though for the most part it was a sideboard inclusion in decks that it was in, it didn't stop it from being important during its time in Standard. Out of a total of 165 top 8 Standard deck inclusions, it was a sideboard card in many blue Devotion decks along with other control decks as well. It also saw small inclusions in all the other formats, with 15 top 8s in Modern, 4 in Extended, 2 in Vintage, with 39 Legacy top 8 inclusions, and is one of very few cards on this list to top 8 in all 5 formats. Ratchet Bomb would be reprinted again in Magic 2014, and as far as price goes, this card goes for just under $2. Number 73, DEATHRITE Shaman. One of 3 cards on this list printed in the expansion Return to Ravnica, DEATHRITE Shaman is a creature that is capable of using all graveyards for the controlling player's benefit. Whether it is to gain life, make an opponent lose life, or gathering more mana for your turn, this card was definitely efficient when it got to the main board. In the standard format, it was mostly a sideboard selection to combat other Reanimator decks since it could target both players' graveyards. It would gain 22 top 8 inclusions in standard and would also gain more momentum in the modern format. However, it had the most impact in the Legacy format as it would become a main board inclusion in decks such as 4-color Control and Bug decks. In total, it was in 66 top 8 inclusions in the format and also had 6 top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format as well. However, due to its banning in Legacy recently, it will be interesting to see what happens to this card in the future. It would be reprinted again in the set Eternal Masters, and so far DEATHRITE Shaman currently goes for about $4. Number 72, Cavern of Souls. This land was the only card to make the list that was from Avacyn Restored. This card can give you 1 generic mana and 1 mana of any color for a specific creature type that you choose when it enters the battlefield. On top of that, those creatures can't be countered. In the Legacy and Vintage formats, it has seen a combined 39 top 8 inclusions, but it was more effective in Standard and Modern. In Standard, it was in 75 top 8 decks and was mostly associated with Human and Rakdos aggro decks, while in Modern, it was in 54 top 8 decks and was included in Eldrazi aggro decks. Players like this card also in the Commander format since it synergizes well with tribal strategies. Cavern of Souls was reprinted again in the set Modern Masters 2017 and goes for the price of about $75. Number 71, Aethersworn Canonist. Coming out of the expansion Shards of Alara, this 2/2 artifact creature slowed down the play of most strategies when it entered the battlefield. For the most part, it was a sideboard inclusion in the decks that it was in. Its lowest top 8s came in both the Standard format and Vintage format with 2 and 7 top 8s respectively. It was a little bit better when it came to the Extended and Modern format, where it gained 11 extended top 8s and 39 for the Modern format. Its best format inclusions, however, was when it was a sideboard card in the Legacy format. In this particular format, it was part of 73 top 8 decks and was part of strategies such as Miracles and Death and Taxes. It did get a reprint in the first Modern Master set, and so far, getting a copy from either set will cost you around $12. Number 70, Chalice of the Void. Oddly enough, this is the only card that came out of the Mirrodin expansion, which to most players is considered one of the most powerful sets to have ever been made. Chalice of the Void has a mana cost of double X and is able to counter spells of certain mana costs depending on the amount of charge counters it has on it. This effectively made it hard for opponents to cast frequently played spells or early game spells depending on the strategy. As far as results go, it did not top 8 in standard professional events, and in Extended and Legacy, it had a combined total of 34 top 8s. Chalice of the Void would end up being a big performer in the Modern and Vintage formats where it had almost equal top 8 results. In Modern, it was seen in many Eldrazi decks, and in Vintage, it was part of many Mud decks. It would see reprints in Modern Masters, Masters 25, and would also be printed as an invention card for the Kaladesh block. Currently, the lowest price for Chalice of the Void goes for around $48. Number 69. Kitchen Finks. With the printing of the Shadowmoor expansion set, we saw the arrival of the creature card Kitchen Finks. With gaining 2 life when it enters the battlefield and the persist mechanic, it could be very tedious getting rid of this card. As far as its top 8 results would go, it was an inclusion in 29 standard top 8s, 15 extended top 8s, and 17 top 8s in Legacy. It gained the biggest attention in the Modern format, where it has been an inclusion in 102 top 8 decks and was part of many Jund and Birthing Pod strategies. It was also in decks such as Rug Order, Dark Horizons, and even a few Creature Toolbox strategies as well. It got another reprint in the first Modern Master set and is currently going for the price of about $10. Number 68. Cabal Therapy. Cabal Therapy was printed in the expansion Judgment. This is one of the oldest versions of hand destruction spells and has the added benefit of having the flashback mechanic. When it came to the standard scene of its time, it was only in 2 top 8 decks overall, but did a much better job when it hit the extended format as it had a place in Icarid decks. It has seen the most usage in the Legacy format as is part of many strategies such as Dredge, along with being in deck inclusions in Grixis Delver decks. It would be some time before it would get reprinted in another set, but when Eternal Masters was released, Cabal Therapy was part of that roster. The cost of a paper copy of Cabal Therapy is currently just under the $2 mark. Number 67. Cryptic Command. 3 cards came out of the Lorwyn expansion that made the list. Cryptic Command is just the first of the 3. This heavy blue costing instant spell gave you the effect of choosing 2 of the 4 effects. The most common combination are usually found in countering a spell and drawing a card, but you could also tap all of your opponent's creatures or bounce a target permanent back. This was a very versatile spell in its standard career as it was included in 44 top 8 finishes. It also obtained 33 top 8 finishes in extended, along with 2 legacy top 8 inclusions as well, but the Modern format was where it really shined. In Modern, it totaled in at 95 top 8 finishes as it was part of many control strategies and was part of numerous Splinter Twin decks as well. It would later be reprinted in Masters 2015 and Iconic Masters, along with being printed as an Amonkhet Invocation card. On top of that, the starting price of a paper copy of the spell begins at $24. Number 66. Rest in Peace. Another card coming from Return to Ravnica, just like DEATHRITE Shaman, Rest in Peace was an enchantment that exiles all cards from the graveyard, and when cards go to the graveyard, they become exiled instead. Another card that attacks graveyard strategies, it made a decent impact on the standard format when it became a sideboard inclusion card for 23 top 8 decks. It has had the best performances so far in the Modern format, where it was part of many Eldrazi and Affinity decks, and accumulated a total of 62 top 8 finishes. It even saw a good amount of play in both Legacy and Vintage, as it gained a combined 63 total top 8s for its effectiveness against Reanimator strategies. It would see another printing in the Masters 25 set, and this card is currently going for around $5. Number 65. Blood Moon. First appearing in the expansion set, The Dark, Blood Moon was a card that has a simple effect in the grand scheme of things, but overall, the spell was extremely effective. This red enchantment has the effect of making non-basic land cards mountains in an effort to shut down multicolored strategies. While only getting 2 top 8 standard deck inclusions in its runtime, Blood Moon would be the most effective as a sideboard card in the Modern format. With over 100 top 8 inclusions in this format, Blood Moon can be seen in popular decks such as Affinity, Storm, and Izzet Aggro. It didn't stop at that format, however. Blood Moon would also see play in the Legacy format, as it would be a sideboard inclusion in Blue-White Miracles and Show and Tell decks. Blood Moon would get reprinted in the first compilation set Chronicles, Core Set's 8th and 9th edition, Masters 25, and would also be printed as an Amonkhet Invocation spell just like Cryptic Command. The prices for paper copies of Blood Moon are currently sitting around $19 each. Number 64. Ghost Quarter. Coming out of the last expansion in the Ravnica block, Dissension, Ghost Quarter was a land card that produced mana and had the ability to destroy a land. Cheap land destruction is always good to have in most cases, and Ghost Quarter was a card that performed that pretty well. In even smaller cases, it can be used to fix your mana colors as you target a land you control and get another land that you needed out of your deck. This had a great run in the standard format when it had 50 top 8 placings in that format and was seen in decks like Solar Flare, Red Deck Wins, and Control. It made an even bigger impact in Modern when it gained 95 top 8 finishes and was seen in both Bant and Tron decks, among many others. It would also have 16 top 8 inclusions in Extended, 5 top 8s in Legacy, and even 11 top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format. Ghost Quarter would see reprintings in the Innistrad expansion, Commander 2014, and Commander 2015, and currently costs just under $2. Number 63, Flash Freeze. The Cold Snap expansion saw the printing of the card Flash Freeze. This spell was able to counter red and green spells for 1 blue and 1 generic mana. While it doesn't seem as powerful as other counter spells over the 25 years of Magic, it was a big sideboard inclusion card during the standard format between 2011 and 2012. During its time in Standard, it saw a total of 224 top 8 finishes and was mostly in Delver and Caw-Blade decks of that day. Unfortunately, it is yet to see any top 8 placements in both Legacy and Vintage formats, and has only seen a total of 18 top 8 finishes between Modern and the Extended format. While it might take more time for this card to get replaced on this list, when it was present in the Standard format, it was included quite often. Flash Freeze would be reprinted 5 more times, with the most recent printing being in Modern Masters 2015, and right now, the card goes for under 25 cents. Number 62, Counterspell. The original spell prevention card that made its mark since its first printing in the Alpha set. For 2 blue mana, you get to counter a target spell. It was in the Standard format between 1996 and 1997, and between 1999 and 2002, where it was in 28 top 8 decks as a way to cheaply shut down pretty much every card before a spell can get to the battlefield, or before a spell could be resolved. This card would have a better success in the Extended format, where it had 45 top 8 inclusions, and was part of decks such as Psychotog and countertop Goyf decks. It would also have its best result in the Legacy format, where it totaled in at 75 top 8 decks, as it was most notably included in Blue-White Miracles. Counterspell would be reprinted numerous times, with its most recent reprintings in Eternal Masters and Masters 25, along with also being printed as an Amonkhet Invocation card. On top of that, this card is also affordable at the starting price of just above $1. Number 61, Scavenging Ooze. The green creature card that was first printed in Commander 2011. This card is known for being able to abuse the graveyard while also making itself stronger. For 1 green and 1 generic mana, you receive a 2/2 creature that can remove cards from a graveyard and become stronger if creature cards are removed. It wouldn't see standard play until its printing in the core set Magic 2014, but would accumulate 31 top 8 inclusions and see a good portion of play in Jund aggro decks. It would have the best numbers in the Modern format, as it almost tripled its top 8 inclusions with being part of 89 top 8 decks. Scavenging Ooze would also see performance numbers in the Legacy format, where it would be a part of 47 top 8 decks, and most notably being part of Elves decks. As far as reprints, it was printed again in Magic 2014 as we mentioned earlier, but was also printed in Commander 2016, Modern Masters 2017, and Volume 2 of the Commander Anthology. Scavenging Ooze currently goes for about $3 on the secondary market. Number 60, Dark Confidant. The other spell that came from Ravnica's City of Guilds was the black creature card Dark Confidant. For 1 black and 1 generic mana, you get a 2/1 human wizard that at each upkeep, you reveal the top of your card and put it into your hand with the drawback of losing life equal to the CMC of the revealed card. Surprisingly, during its time in Standard, it was only included in 3 top 8 decks. However, it would make a bigger impact in the Modern and Legacy formats, where it received 66 and 64 top 8 finishes respectively. In Modern, it was most notable in being part of many Jund strategies, while in Legacy, it was used in Ad Nauseam, Dark Depths, and Dark Horizons. It was reprinted again in the original Modern Masters set and Modern Masters 2015. However, for each paper copy of Dark Confidant, it's going to run you about $67. Number 59, Inkmoth Nexus. This particular manland came out of the Mirrodin Besiege expansion and can not only give you 1 generic mana, but can also be turned into a 1/1 flying creature with Infect. In its career in the Standard format, it saw a total of 136 top 8 finishes, and were included in many Kessig, Tempered Steel, and Caw-Blade decks. Inkmoth Nexus also saw a good amount of play in the Modern format by being part of the now famous Affinity deck style, but it also saw a decent amount of inclusion in Infect decks as well. However, when it comes to the Eternal formats, Inkmoth Nexus has only been in 3 top 8 inclusions in the Legacy format, and has never topped 8 at a professional Vintage competition. Inkmoth Nexus has only been printed in Mirrodin Besiege, and the price of this card is going for around $18. Number 58, Ancient Tomb. Coming out of the Tempest expansion, Ancient Tomb was a land card that could be tapped to add 2 mana with the drawback of taking 2 damage. It saw a very limited amount of play during its time in Standard, as it was only included in 4 top 8 finishes. While it did do better in the Extended format with 13 top 8 inclusions, it really shined in the Eternal formats. It gained 68 top 8 deck inclusions in the Legacy format, where it saw a good amount of play in Sneak and Show, along with Stompy decks as well. It also had another 50 top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format, where it's part of a significant amount of Mud decks. It was released again in From the Vault Realms, got a printing as a ZENDIKAR Expedition land, and currently goes for the price of just under $50. Number 57, Nature's Claim. Another card that came out of the World Wake expansion, Nature's Claim was a green instant spell that can destroy an artifact or enchantment for 1 green mana with the drawback of giving your opponent 4 life. When it was in the standard format, it was a sideboard spell that had inclusions in 28 top 8 decks, with Nature's Claim showing up the most in Valakut ramp decks. It also had good inclusion numbers in the Eternal formats, with a combined 53 top 8 inclusions, as this card showed up the most in dredge-based strategies. When it came to the Modern format, however, it had 87 top 8 inclusions, where it saw the most play in Infect. Most recently, it was a sideboard inclusion in GP Las Vegas, where it was part of the deck known as KCI back in June of 2018. Nature's Claim would get reprinted again in Conspiracy, Eternal Masters, and Iconic Masters as well. On top of that, this card currently goes for about 25 cents. Number 56, Liliana of the Veil. The second Planeswalker that made this top 100 list, Liliana of the Veil, was printed in the set Innistrad. When it comes to Planeswalkers, Liliana of the Veil is one of the cheapest, with some pretty good effects like discarding cards or making an opponent sacrifice a creature. It made a huge impact in the standard format, where it totaled in at 70 top 8 inclusions and was part of many Jund Control and Jund midrange decks. In Modern, it received even more top 8 inclusions, where it gained 95 top 8 inclusions, while also being part of many Jund strategies like in Standard. This card also saw action in Death Shadows, Junk, and Rock decks as well. It also obtained 28 top 8 placements in Legacy and has seen a good bit of inclusion in Shardless Bug decks. Liliana of the Veil saw a reprint in the set Modern Masters 2017, and this powerful Planeswalker goes for the price of about $90 on the secondary market. Number 55, Delver of Secrets. Also coming out of the Innistrad expansion was a blue transforming creature card, Delver of Secrets. One of the best low-costing creature spells on this list. Each upkeep, you may reveal the top of your deck, and if it's a sorcery or instant spell, this creature transforms into a 3/2 flying creature. Many deck styles are named and revolve around Delver of Secrets in multiple formats, since it's a very efficient attacker. In formats like Modern, it saw a decent amount of top 8 placements with 28 total inclusions, but this card saw the most inclusions in both Standard and Legacy, where Delver of Secrets was included in 70 top 8 decks in each of those two formats. This card also sees a good amount of play in the Pauper format since it was printed as a common card. As of right now, the starting price of this card goes for under $2. Number 54, Mox Sapphire. Like Ancestry Recall and Time Walk, this card was part of the most powerful cards to ever be printed, called the Power 9. While the cards of the cycle known as the Moxen would average around the 300 range, Mox Sapphire was the most used and the most successful card. This was a zero-cost artifact that is able to produce 1 blue mana, which was able to give players huge early game advantages in terms of mana. In Standard, it was part of 4 top 8 decks back in the early days of Magic when Standard competition was very small. But it has 138 top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format, since only 1 copy of the card is allowed in that format. Essentially, any deck that runs blue will most likely run Mox Sapphire as a way to get mana very quickly. In total, it was only printed in the first 3 sets of Magic before the release of the first expansion, Arabian Nights, and paper copies of this card start at $1,200. Number 53, Qasali Pridemage. With the printing of the expansion, LLANOWAR Reborn saw the printing of the white-green cat wizard, Qasali Pridemage. For 1 white and 1 green mana, you get a 2/2 creature with the Exalted mechanic that becomes more powerful when it attacks alone. However, it also has the ability to be sacrificed in order to destroy an enchantment or an artifact. In the Standard and the Extended format, it had a combined 19 top 8 placings and was part of Bantex, and was most notably part of the Doran deck that won the 2009 GP in Seattle. It made a much bigger impact on the Modern and Legacy format when it was included in 69 and 78 top 8 finishes respectively. In Modern, it was seen in Birthing Pod decks, and recently seen in decks like Collected Company and Abzan, while in the Legacy format, it was seen in Maverick and Stone Bant decks. Qasali Pridemage was printed again in the products Ajani vs Nicol Bolas, along with being printed in the Commander 2017 Cat Tribal deck. Also, as far as the price of this card goes, a paper copy currently goes for about $1.50 each. Number 52, Sensei's Divining Top. The only card to come out of the Champions of Kamigawa expansion was the powerful artifact card Sensei's Divining Top. You can pay 1 mana to look at the top 3 cards and rearrange them in any order, and also tap the card to draw from your deck and bounce the artifact to the top of your library. While it only saw 4 top 8 inclusions during the Standard format of its time, it would make a decent impact on the Extended format with 28 top 8 inclusions before getting banned in that format. It affected the Legacy format the most, where it garnered almost 100 top 8 inclusions and has been seen in Threshold, Miracles, and Dark Horizons. It has since been banned in Modern and Legacy as well, but is legal in the Vintage format, and right now has 30 top 8 inclusions in that format. It would see reprintings in From the Vault Exiled, along with the Eternal Master set, and Sensei's Divining Top currently goes for around $16. Number 51, Inquisition of Kozilek. An extremely powerful hand destruction spell that came out of the expansion Rise of the Eldrazi. For 1 black mana, you look at your opponent's hand and discard an opponent's card that has the converted mana cost of 3 or less. During its runtime in Standard, it was part of 45 top 8 inclusions, whereas part of decks such as Blue-Black Control and Kozilek Caw-Blade. In Extended, it only saw 5 top 8 inclusions, and in Legacy, it saw 27 top 8 placings. But in Modern, it would be an inclusion in 121 top 8 decks, whereas mostly seen in decks such as Death Shadows, Lantern Control, and Jund-based strategies. To most players overall, this is considered to be one of the best black sorceries to ever be printed in Magic's history. Inquisition of Kozilek saw reprintings in the set Conspiracy Take the Crown, along with being part of Modern Masters 2017, and right now, the card currently goes for about $5. Number 50, Pyroclasm. Within this top 100 list, this red sorcery card is one of the cards that has seen the most amount of reprints. For 1 red and 1 generic mana, the spell deals 2 damage to each creature. For most red decks in Magic's history, this was seen as a big sideboard card against extremely fast aggro decks, and was red's version of a board wipe. It was a card that was in Standard on and off again since Ice Age and all the way through Magic 2011. In its Standard career, it would obtain a total of 88 top 8 finishes in the format, whereas part of many aggro and other red-based strategies. It would be included in 12 extended top 8s, 55 modern top 8s, 4 top 8s in the vintage format, and 47 top 8 finishes in Legacy, where it was in recent decks such as Show and Tell. And since this card has been reprinted so many times, you could grab paper copies of this card for around 25 cents. Number 49, Sword of Feast and Famine. Another Mirrodin Besieged card that made this list was the equipment card Sword of Feast and Famine. When equipped to a creature, it gets +2/+2 protection from black and green, and when the creature deals player damage, that player discards a card and all the controlling player's lands become untapped. In its time in Standard, it had almost 200 top 8 inclusions and was seen in the now famous deck style known as Caw-Blade. While it saw limited success in Extended and Modern with 6 top 8 inclusions each, it was seen in 40 top 8 Legacy decks, as it was seen the most in Stoneblade. It would not be reprinted in typical fashion like other cards on this list, but was reprinted in the Calidus expansion set as an invention card. As of right now, paper copies of this card go for around $35 each. Number 48, Black Lotus. Widely considered to be the most powerful card ever to be printed along with being the most expensive, Black Lotus was a 0-cost artifact spell that can get sacrificed to add 3 mana of 1 color to your mana pool. Just like Mox Sapphire, it was part of 4 top 8 decks in the Standard format of its time, but so far has been in 145 top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format, and is seen in numerous deck styles such as Monastery, Oath of Druid, along with Mud, and Ravager Shops. Due to the powerful nature of this card, it is banned in the Legacy format, and has also been banned in both regular Commander and 1v1 Commander. While this is considered to be one of the rarest cards to ever be printed, pricing for paper copies of this card go for about $4,000, but might not be in the best shape. This card becomes more expensive as the condition improves and becomes closer to near mint, and the highest graded cards from the first core sets can easily go over $7,000 and go as high as $26,000. Number 47, Mutavault. A land card that came out of the expansion Morningtide, Mutavault was a mana land card just like Inkmoth Nexus that can generate mana and become a creature with all creature types until the end of turn. It made the biggest impact in the Standard format, where it had been in a total of 164 top 8 decks and was widely seen in Devotion of Blue and Devotion of Black decks. It would see a decent amount of Modern and Extended success, where it would obtain a combined 42 top 8s between these formats. It would also see play in the Legacy format, as it would be part of 34 top 8 Legacy inclusions, where it was part of numerous Merfolk decks. It would be reprinted again in the core set Magic 2014, and in terms of the card's price tag, you could get paper copies of this card for about $10. Number 46, Krosan Grip. The green instant that came out of the Time Spiral expansion, this card can destroy a target artifact or enchantment with the added benefit of including the split second mechanic. When it came to the Standard format, it was only included in 6 top 8 decks during the time it was in there, and didn't see much more success in the Extended and Modern format when it had a combined total of 28 top 8 finishes. It would however make an impact on the Legacy format, where it's part of 125 top 8 decks and can be seen in Threshold, Zoo, and Ad Nauseam decks. It saw a few reprints when it was printed again in Modern Masters, Commander 2015, and also in Commander Anthology as well. In terms of Krosan Grip's price, paper copies of this card go for about $2. Number 45, Stoneforge Mystic. Coming out of the Worldwake expansion just like a few other cards, Stoneforge Mystic was a card that could get you a much needed equipment card in a pinch. When it came onto the Standard scene, it was part of the powerful deck style known as Caw-Blade, where it was a tool to mostly get Sword of Feast and Famine, or in some cases, Sword of Body and Mind. In all, it was in 90 top 8 decks of its time, with Caw-Blade running that format for some time. It did equally well in the Legacy format as well, where it would accumulate 94 top 8 inclusions, and was seen in the deck styles known as Stoneblade and Death and Taxes. It would not see any reprints in other sets or expansions, and right now, Stoneforge Mystic goes for about $35. Number 44, Red Elemental Blast. While not part of the Power 9 in the first original Magic set, Red Elemental Blast was a low-cost spell that had one job: to mess with blue players. For 1 mana, it could either counter a blue spell or destroy a blue permanent altogether. In Standard, it was seen in 8 top 8 decks as a sideboard selection, but in terms of the best format performance, it can be seen in the Legacy format like most of the previous cards on here, and received a total of 136 top 8 inclusions, and has seen the most spots in Canadian Threshold decks. Recently, it has been a spell that has been seen in decks like 4-Color Control back in April of 2018. Red Elemental Blast has also been seen in Revised Edition and 4th Edition, but paper copies of this card can be picked up for about 25 cents. Number 43, Karakas. The only card from the Legends expansion, Karakas was a land card that could be tapped to add 1 white mana and also tapped to bring a legendary creature back to its owner's hand. This card has only seen play in the Eternal formats, but so far has 24 top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format and over 130 top 8s in the Legacy format. This card is used in a variety of ways as a way to bounce back an opponent's legendary creature, protect one of your legendary creatures from removal, and helps reuse cards with Enter the Battlefield effects. This is usually used with creatures like Thalia, Venser's Shaper Savant, and Vendilion Click, and usually see deck inclusions in lands and blue-white miracles. This card is currently banned in both of the Commander formats and has been reprinted in the set Eternal Masters and can be bought for about $55 per copy. Number 42, Grim Lavamancer. The only card that was originally printed in the Torment expansion, Grim Lavamancer was a low-cost creature that is able to consistently burn an opponent. With its effect, it can exile 2 cards from your graveyard and tap to essentially have the same effect as the spell Shock. It was a big inclusion piece in Red Deck wins during Standard and has obtained a total of 35 top 8 finishes. It would do better when it was legal in Modern, where it had 61 top 8 placements and was included in decks like Jund, Naya, and Burn. It would have the best results, however, in the Legacy format when it was an inclusion in 81 top 8 decks, as it was seen the most in Grixis Delver and red-blue-green decks simply known as Rug. Grim Lavamancer would be seen again in the core set Magic 2012 and Arch Enemy Nicol Bolas, with the price of paper copies of this card going for about $7 each. Number 41, Birds of Paradise. One of the first creature cards to ever be printed in Magic's history, Birds of Paradise have the simple effect of tapping itself to add 1 mana of any color. A low-cost mana ramp or mana fixing card usually sees a home in many strategies that support green. In all, it had a total of 136 top 8 inclusions and was seen in a fair amount of decks such as green-white and green-red aggro decks. It also had 16 top 8 extended deck inclusions, 29 top 8 legacy inclusions, along with being in a good amount of modern top 8 decks, totaling in at 74 in all, with recent deck inclusions being in the form of Creature Toolbox and Collected Company decks. As far as reprints go, it has seen new printings and new artwork throughout most of the core sets it was placed in, with its most recent printing coming out of the set Conspiracy, Take the Crown. Birds of Paradise currently goes for about $8 on the secondary market. Number 40, Flusterstorm. This blue instant spell was not originally printed in any true expansion at first, but was actually seen in Commander 2011. This card is able to counter a target instant or sorcery spell and lets its controller pay 1 generic mana. Along with that, it also has the Storm mechanic attached to it as well. This would make the card dangerous, as Storm lets spells be copied for each spell that was cast before it. Flusterstorm has no standard career since it was printed in Commander 2011, but sees much play in the Eternal formats. It garnered a total of 104 top 8 deck inclusions in that format, where it sees inclusions in Show and Tell, 4-Color Control, Miracles, and Delver decks. In the Vintage format, it saw 65 top 8 inclusions and can be seen in decks such as Monastery and Jeskai decks. It would be printed again in the set Iconic Masters, with starting prices of paper copies going for about $14. Number 39, Dispel. This card, just like other previous cards, came out of the Worldwake expansion. This blue instant spell simply has the effect of countering other instant spells. During its time in Standard, it was mostly a sideboard inclusion card that was part of 154 top 8 decks and was seen the most in 4-Color Control decks and Marvel decks as well. It also has a solid performance run in Modern, as it was included in 110 top 8 decks and seen in numerous Infect, Twin, and other control style strategies. Sadly, past that, it has only seen a sprinkle of inclusion in the other formats, where it has a combined 11 top 8 finishes between Legacy, Extended, and Vintage. It will only take time to see if this card will be relevant in the Eternal format in the future, but for its time in Standard and Modern, it was a must-have sideboard card in many strategies. Dispel would be printed again in both Return to Ravnica and Battle for Zendikar, with the card currently going for about 25 cents. Number 38, Batterskull. The artifact equipment and living weapon that came out of the new Phyrexia expansion. For a cost of 5 mana, when this card enters the battlefield, it creates a Germ token, becomes attached to the token, and gains 4/4 with Vigilance and Lifelink. Batterskull also has the ability to return to the owner's hand as well, and can be attached to another creature if it stays on the field. Overall, this is a repeatable beatstick that was hard to fight off in many matches. This card saw a standard performance run of 111 top 8 inclusions, where it was seen the most in Delver and Kessig run decks. It also saw a decent run in the Modern format, where it got 44 top 8s in that format, and would also see a combined 84 top 8s in the Eternal formats. Other decks that this card saw playing were Jund, Midrange, Mud, and Stoneblade decks above many other strategies. This card was only printed in the new Phyrexia set, and so far, this card currently goes for about $20. Number 37, Glacial Fortress. Magic 2010 saw the release of the land Glacial Fortress. Glacial Fortress is part of the cycle called the Check Lands, and the cycles as a whole scored around the low 300s. However, Glacial Fortress saw the most play out of all the other cards and produces the colors of blue and white. In Standard, it was in a total of 300 top 8 decks and has been included in strategies such as Esper Control and Blue-White Midrange. Past the Standard format, however, it has seen very little top 8 inclusions in other formats. Between the formats of Extended, Modern, and Legacy, this card has a combined 27 top 8 inclusions. This card has seen reprints in Magic 2011 through Magic 2013 and has seen its most recent printing in the expansion Ixalan. As of right now, paper copies of Glacial Fortress are currently going for about $5. Number 36, Mental Misstep. The third card on this list from New Phyrexia was a blue instant spell that can be paid for 1 blue mana or 2 life. This card was able to counter a target spell with a converted mana cost of 1. In its time in Standard, it was a sideboard card that was involved in 78 top 8 placing decks, and saw numerous inclusions in strategies such as Illusions and Blue-White Delver. It also affected the Eternal formats to a big degree, since powerful 1 mana spells are rampant in these formats. In Legacy, it saw 59 top 8 inclusions, with Vintage having even more inclusions at 78 and being part of decks like Jeskai and Rug Order. It is currently banned in both Modern and Legacy and has only seen 1 printing, but Mental Misstep goes for around the $1 mark in paper copies. Number 35, Noble Hierarch. Coming out of the Conflux expansion, this creature spell has the Exalted mechanic, making it stronger when it attacks by itself, and has the ability to add 1 of the 3 mana colors. In all, it was a mana dork that could also have the option of getting early game damage in as well. In its Standard career, it would see 21 top 8 inclusions, where it saw the most play in Bant decks. It would see much more play in the Modern and Legacy formats though, where it was in over 100 top 8 Modern decks and over 80 top 8 Legacy decks. It has been involved in decks such as Humans, Birthing Pod, and Poison, among other strategies, and this card was also part of decks that won both GP Columbus and GP Louisville between 2016 and 2017 for the Legacy format. It would see another reprint in Modern Masters 2015 and currently goes for the decently hefty price of about $75. Number 34, Gitaxian Probe. The fourth card from the set New Phyrexia was the blue sorcerer card Gitaxian Probe. For 1 blue mana or 2 life, you get to look at a target player's hand and draw a card on top of that. Gitaxian Probe gave players an insight into an opponent's strategy to help predict their moves while also replacing it with a new card after the spell was used. It was a highly used card in the Standard format where it was part of 87 top 8 inclusions, with the most play being seen in Delver decks. It would also see a good amount of play in the Modern format where it obtained 58 top 8s and could be seen in a vast amount of Infect decks. It didn't stop at those 2 formats however. Gitaxian Probe would see a home in the Eternal formats where it would see a combined total of 91 top 8 finishes between the Legacy and Vintage formats. In those 2 formats, it was part of many Grixis Delver decks, but would also see inclusions in Storm decks as well. Just like Mental Misstep, it didn't see another reprinting anywhere else, but paper copies of this card do go for around $1.50 each. Number 33, Abrupt Decay. Just like the previous cards DEATHRITE Shaman and Rest in Peace, Abrupt Decay came out of the expansion Return to Ravnica. For 1 black and 1 green mana, this card can destroy a non-land permanent with 3 CMC or less and can also not be countered. In Standard, it was included in 46 top 8 decks and part of strategies like Golgari and Reanimator. It had its best performance in the Modern format where it was part of 120 top 8 decks, with this card being seen the most in Jund. Abrupt Decay also sees play in the Eternal formats where it's part of 54 top 8 inclusions in the Legacy format along with 14 top 8 Vintage decks. Abrupt Decay would see a reprinting in Modern Masters 2017, and you can pick up paper copies of this spell for about $5 each. Number 32, Spell Snare. The other Dissension card that got printed alongside with Ghost Quarter was the blue spell card Spell Snare. For 1 blue mana, you could counter a spell with a converted mana cost of 2. This was seen as a sideboard inclusion in most decks, and when it hit the Standard scene, it only received 4 top 8 finishes. It would do better in the Modern and Extended formats, where it garnered a total of 99 top 8 finishes combined, and was seen in decks like Blue-White Control and Twin Exarch. Spell Snare got another reprinting in the set Modern Masters, and most recently in the 2-headed giant emphasized Battle Bond set. Paper copies of Spell Snare are going for just under $1. Number 31, Tormod'S Crypt. Just like the card Blood Moon, Tormod'S Crypt was part of one of the earliest expansions called The Dark. At the cost of 0 mana, the effect of this card was to simply tap and sacrifice to exile all cards from a target player's graveyard. It was an effective sideboard card just like NIHIL SPELLBOMB at attacking graveyard strategies such as Reanimator. Between Standard, Modern, and the Extended format, it had a combined total of 45 top 8 finishes between these formats and was seen in Grinder decks the most. It had a much better impact on the Eternal formats, where it received 55 top 8 inclusions in the Vintage format, along with 102 top 8 inclusions in the Legacy format, where it was seen the most in strategies such as Survival and Maverick decks. It saw reprints in the first compilation set Chronicles, Magic 2013, and recently saw a reprint in Commander 2014, and goes for the cheap price of about 50 cents. Number 30, Preordain. First printed in the core set Magic 2011, Preordain was a cheap yet effective blue sorcery card. For 1 blue mana, you're able to scry 2 cards and then be able to draw a card, which made it a very good card to give your strategy an advantage. It made a large impact in its Standard career, where it was part of 176 top 8 inclusions and was widely used in many Callblade decks. While it didn't have a good performance in the Modern and Extended formats with 14 top 8s, while also being currently banned in the Modern format as well, it would make a pretty good splash in the Legacy and Vintage formats with 43 and 50 top 8 finishes respectively. In the Eternal formats, strategies that this card were involved in were decks such as Show and Tell, High Tide, Monastery, and Jeskai. It would be reprinted in the dual decks Venture vs. Koth and again in Commander 2015, and you could get copies of Preordain for about $4 each. Number 29, Stomping Ground. A card that was released in the expansion's Guild Pack and is part of the cycle called the Shocklands, Stomping Ground was a dual color land that could be tapped to add 1 green or 1 red mana with a small drawback. While dual lands or lands that can tap for a choice of 2 colors is fairly common, these are better than most non-basic lands since these cards can be put on the field via the fetch lands. The Shocklands also as a cycle scored around the low 500s. While it was in the Standard format, it obtained a total of 58 top 8 finishes in the format and was seen quite a bit in Naya and Devotion of Gruul decks. While it had a limited amount of success in Extended and Legacy, where it had a combined 18 top 8s, Stomping Ground saw the most success in the Modern format. In Modern, it accumulated over 200 top 8 inclusions overall, and was seen in strategies like Valakut, Jund, and Delver decks. Stomping Ground was reprinted again in the expansion Gatecrash, and was also printed as a ZENDIKAR Expedition. Paper copies of Stomping Ground are going for the price of about $18 each. Number 28, Engineered Explosives. An artifact that came out of the expansion Fifth Dawn, Engineered Explosives was a card that was able to destroy numerous permanents of certain mana costs and had the Sunburst mechanic. It has a mana cost of X and gets counters depending on the number of different colors used. During its time in Standard, it wasn't included in any top 8 decks since artifact creatures and affinity strategies were running the scene. However, it would see more inclusion as a sideboard card in other formats. In Extended, it had 31 top 8 finishes, which was seen in decks like Next Level Blue, 17 Vintage top 8s and being part of Monastery decks, and 81 top 8 Legacy decks, with Engineered Explosives being part of decks such as Blue-White Miracles. It would make its biggest impact on the Modern format, would be part of over 100 top 8 inclusions, and was seen in many control strategy variants. Engineered Explosives would get reprinted again in Modern Masters, while also being reprinted as an Avenging card for the Kaladesh expansion. Currently, Engineered Explosives goes for around $85. Number 27, Daze. Another card from Nemesis that made this list, Daze was a soft counterspell that could be paid with the returning of one of your islands. Between the Standard and the Extended format, it would only see 8 top 8 inclusions between the two. However, it would find a home in many Legacy decks as a counterspell for the early game, and would sometimes be used when all lands are tapped, making it hard for an opponent to figure out if their spells were safe or not. In the Legacy format, it gained a total of 199 top 8 finishes overall, where it sees play in a lot of Grixis Delver and Threshold decks. While it might seem easy to get past Daze's counter costs, players can still run the risk of playing a big spell using all their mana only to fizzle out when Daze comes into play. Daze would also get reprinted in Jace vs. Chandra, the set Eternal Masters, and would be printed as an invocation card in the Amonkhet expansion. As of the recording of this video, Daze is currently going for the low price of just under $2 each. Number 26, Spellskite. Another card that was printed out of the set New Phyrexia, Spellskite was a 0/4 artifact that has the ability to change targets of a spell. Whether it was burn, kill, or other non-creature spells, Spellskite was able to affect all of them with 1 blue mana or 2 points of your own life. It made a statement when it was mostly a sideboard card in the Standard format, as it accumulated 105 top 8 placings overall, where it was included in many Tempered Steel strategies. It would almost double the amount of top 8 inclusions in the Modern format, with a total of 191 top 8 decks in all, and was seen in Lantern Control, Affinity, and Creature Toolbox. Spellskite would see another reprinting in the set Modern Masters 2015, and you could grab a copy of this creature for about $8 each. Number 25, UMEZAWA'S Jite. Betrayers of Kamigawa saw the printing of one of the most versatile equipment spells to ever be made. For 2 mana to play and 2 mana to equip, Anytime a creature with this card attached deals combat damage, UMEZAWA'S GTA gains 2 charge counters. You can also use those charge counters to make a creature stronger, another creature weaker, or gain 2 life. When it was legal in Standard and Extended, it gained a combined 48 top 8 finishes overall and was seen in blue-white weenies and elves. It has had its best performances, however, in the Legacy format, where it was included in over 170 decks and seen in strategies such as Stoneblade and Death and Taxes. As of right now, it is banned in the Modern format, but was reprinted again in From the Vault lore. You can get a paper copy of this card for about $16 each. Number 24, Surgical Extraction. The black instant spell from New Phyrexia that can be played for 1 black mana or 2 life. Surgical Extraction is mostly a sideboard card that can strike a certain card in a graveyard and exile all copies from the graveyard, hand, and library. In the Standard format of its time, it obtained 79 top 8 inclusions and was seen in many Delver decks as well. When it came to Modern, it received 50 top 8 inclusions and was seen in plenty of control strategies, but when it came to Legacy, Surgical Extraction would see its best performance. Surgical Extraction has so far seen its way onto 140 top 8 decks, being a sideboard card in Grixis, Delver, and Miracles. This spell would be reprinted again in the set Modern Masters 2015, and Surgical Extraction currently goes for the price tag of about $22 each. Number 23, Pyroblast. At face value, Pyroblast seems to be a functional reprint of another card on this list, Red Elemental Blast. Pyroblast can counter a target spell if it's blue, or destroy a target permanent if it's blue also. The reason why this card is usually seen as a better card than Red Elemental Blast is the ruling on targeting. Pyroblast can target spells and it might not have any effect, but Red Elemental Blast can only target blue spells, which makes Pyroblast more advantageous in strategies such as Storm, where cast spells matter. Overall, between Standard and Extended, it gained 42 top 8 finishes and saw sideboard inclusion in Recurring Survival and 3 Deuce decks. In the Eternal formats though, it was included in a total of 198 top 8 decks and was seen in Show and Tell, 4-color control, and Canadian Threshold strategies. Pyroblast would get reprints in sets such as Core Set 5th Edition, along with the set Eternal Masters. As of right now, Pyroblast goes for the cheap price of about $3 per copy. Number 22, Path to Exile. Cheap removal spells are good fits for most deck strategies. For this card from the Conflict set, Path to Exile was one of the best. For 1 white mana, you can exile a target creature, and that creature's controller can search for a basic land to put on the battlefield tapped. During its time in Standard and Extended, it was seen in a combined 39 top 8 decks, with being part of Naya and Zeus strategies. It would do slightly better in the Eternal formats for its cheap effective removal, as it has been part of 85 combined top 8 decks. Modern though is where Path to Exile has done the best overall. In this format, Path to Exile was an inclusion in 159 top 8 decks and can be seen in a variety of strategies such as Burn, Abzan, Creature Toolbox, Zoo, and Eldrazi Aggro. Path to Exile would see multiple reprints in Arch Enemy, Commander 2011, the Venser vs. Koth dual deck, along with being reprinted again in both the first Modern Masters and Modern Masters 2017. The cheapest price that Path to Exile is currently going for starts at around $7. Number 21, Mana Leak. The only card to come out of the expansion Stronghold was one of the best soft counter spells in Magic's history. For 1 blue mana and 1 generic mana, you can counter a target spell unless its controller pays 3 mana, making it a very good early game spell. In formats like Modern and Extended, it was part of 93 top 8 finishes and was part of many control strategies. It saw a sprinkle of inclusion in the Eternal format, where it only saw 9 top 8 finishes between Legacy and Vintage, but in the card's history, the Standard format was where it shined. Mana Leak would see a total of 320 top 8 finishes in its Standard career run and was seen in decks such as Delver, Wake, Callblade, Rug, along with many other control-based strategies. It was reprinted again in 8th and 9th edition, Magic 2011-2012, and was also printed in the dual deck Speed vs. Cunning. On top of that, Mana Leak is also very affordable and you could get paper copies of this card for around 25 cents. Number 20, Pithing Needle. The only card that came out of the Saviors of Kamigawa expansion, Pithing Needle was a card that was able to shut down a card that was named after it came onto the battlefield. When it was in the Standard format, it was a cheap sideboard inclusion card for many control style strategies and accumulated 90 top 8 placings overall. It would total about the same amount of top 8s combined when looking at the Extended and Modern format. However, it has seen the most success in the Legacy format, where it obtained over 130 top 8 finishes and saw inclusions in decks such as Death and Taxes, Bug, and Reanimator decks. It would even see small Vintage success, as it would go on to be involved in 31 top 8 inclusions in that format. The most recent inclusions this card has been a part of were in decks such as Dark Depths and Grixis Delver at GP Seattle in April of 2018. This card saw reprinting in 10th edition, Magic 2010, and also in the expansion set Return to Ravnica, along with being printed as an invention card in the COLONNADE set. Pithing Needle also goes for the decently low price of about $4. Number 19, Swords to Plowshares. Printed within the same set as Sol Ring and the Power 9, Swords to Plowshares was a white instant spell similar to Path to Exile. For 1 white mana, you are able to exile a creature off the battlefield and give that creature's control a life equal to its power. During its time in Standard and Extended, it would receive a combined total of 39 top 8 deck inclusions and was seen in decks like Oath of Druids and 3 Deuce. Just like Pithing Needle though, Swords to Plowshares would see much more inclusions in the Eternal formats, as it would have 187 top 8 placements in Legacy and 34 top 8 placements in Vintage. This card has seen its fair share of inclusions as a cheap removal spell in strategies like Blue-White Miracles, Bant, Maverick, Monastery, and a number of different control decks. It has been reprinted numerous times in the early days of Magic, but has also seen reprints in Eternal Masters, Commander 2016, Iconic Masters, and most recently in Battle Bond. It is also very cheap due to its reprintings, and paper copies of the spell can be bought for about 75 cents per copy. Number 18, Grafdigger's Cage. The release of the set Dark Ascension also saw the printing of the artifact Grafdigger's Cage. For 1 mana, creatures are not able to enter the battlefield from graveyards or libraries, with the added bonus of players not being able to cast spells from both of these places as well. This card saw small success in the Standard format, where it's part of 11 top 8 decks in professional competitions. It would see better inclusions in the Eternal formats, where between Legacy and Vintage, it would have a combined 136 top 8 placings and can be seen in strategies such as Eldrazi, Jeskai, and Ravager Shops. It had its best run in Modern, however, where it was part of 147 top 8 decks and can be seen in Humans and Affinity. It also sees Commander play, where it is used to shut down Reanimator and Wizard decks as they use the graveyard for their playstyle. This card saw another printing in Modern Masters 2017, and the price tag for Grafdigger's Cage is currently going for about $6. Number 17, Vendilion Click. A card coming out of the Morningtide expansion, Vendilion Click was a blue flying creature with a flash mechanic which can be cast on either player's turn. When it enters the battlefield, it can look in an opponent's hand, put a non-land card at the bottom of their library, with the drawback of that player drawing a card. Between Standard and Extended, it has a combined 38 top 8 finishes between these two formats. It would see a better run in the Modern format, where it hit 86 top 8 finishes and was seen in strategies like Jeskai, Blue Moon, and Caw-Blade. Legacy, however, would be the format that Vendilion Click saw the most success. In this format, it would be part of 150 top 8 deck inclusions and would make appearances in Stoneblade and Charlotte's Bug. It would see multiple reprints in the original Modern Masters 2015, and also Masters 25. As of right now, Vendilion Click is going for around $18 per paper copy. Number 16, Snapcaster Mage. The last card that made this top 100 from the Innistrad expansion, Snapcaster Mage was a blue creature spell that was put in a vast amount of decks since its first printing. For 1 blue and 1 generic mana, when it enters the battlefield, a target instant or sorcery spell in your graveyard gains flashback, with the flashback being equal to the CMC. Essentially, this was a card that opened up many different possibilities in the constructed formats. In the Eternal formats, it was in 85 top 8 inclusions in Legacy and 20 top 8s in the Vintage format, as it was part of strategies like Stoneblade, Miracles, and 4-color control. However, it would see its best performances in both Standard and Modern. In Standard, it was in 139 top 8 decks and was seen in a vast amount of different blue-white decks, while in the Modern format, it was part of 131 top 8 inclusions, with being involved in decks like Izzet Aggro, Jeskai Control, Twin Exarch, and Death's Shadow. It was only printed one more time in the set Modern Masters 2017, and the price of a paper copy of Snapcaster Mage currently goes for about $65. Number 15, Volcanic Island. A card that was actually first printed in limited edition beta due to being left out of the alpha print run, Volcanic Island was the card that finished the dual land cycle in the first sets of Magic. This is a land card that can produce either a red or a blue mana and can be put onto the battlefield via the fetch lands. Overall, the entire cycle averaged around the mid 600 range, but Volcanic Island scored much better than the other cards. Between the Standard and Extended format, it had a total of 19 top 8 inclusions, but it would do much better in the Eternal formats. Between the two formats, it received a combined total of 260 top 8 placings, with Volcanic Island seeing about 4 times more top 8 inclusions in Legacy than Vintage. It has also been seen in many decks such as Storm, Miracles, Show and Tell, and Delver as well. The original dual lands are also popular in the Commander format for MTGO, as they are much more available than paper copies. It was last printed back in Revised Edition, and the cheapest version of Volcanic Island is currently going for around $500. Number 14, Duress. The black sorcery spell that was printed in the extremely powerful expansion Urza's Saga, you were able to look at your opponent's hand and choose a non-creature spell to make them discard. Since it was reprinted many times in Magic's history, it had a large amount of stats in the Standard format. In fact, it had the best performance in the Standard format, as it had 294 top 8 inclusions. In the Modern and Extended format, it would receive a total of 83 combined top 8 finishes, but also saw a decent amount of inclusion in the Eternal formats. In regards to Legacy, Duress was able to be a part of 76 top 8 decks with strategies that include Dark Depths, Reanimator, Storm, along with Dark Horizons. It would be reprinted again in 7th edition, with recent printings being seen in the sets Ixalan and Core 2019. On top of that, as far as pricing goes, this card will cost you about 50 cents per copy. Number 13, Jace the Mind Sculptor. The last Planeswalker that made this list was also one of the best to be ever printed. For 2 blue mana and 2 generic mana, Jace has 3 abilities that can be played right away to bounce a creature, draw 3 and put 2 cards back on top of your library in any order, and scry either player's library. If Jace is able to get his last ability off, virtually no opponent could win. In Standard, it was included in many decks as it acquired 128 top 8 inclusions and was part of many Twin Blade and Call Blade decks. It would get banned in Modern rather quickly, but between that and Extended, it would get a total of 19 top 8 placings. Jace saw its best performance in the Legacy format as it would receive 164 top 8 placings while also getting 55 top 8 placings in the Vintage format and being seen in 4-color Control and Miracles. Jace would get reprinted again in From the Vault 20, Eternal Masters, and Masters 25, with the current price tag running around $70 per copy. Number 12, Tarmogoyf. Coming out of the set Future Sight is arguably the best creature to ever be printed. For 1 green and 1 generic mana, you can get a creature card that has its power and +1 toughness for each card type among all graveyards. In Standard and Extended, it had a combined 56 top 8 finishes and is mostly seen in Bant and Zoo decks. It would get much more traction in the Modern format, where it's part of 120 top 8 decks and mostly involved in Jund strategies, but it definitely would not stop there. Just like Jace, it would see a large amount of play in the Legacy format, where it garnered 167 top 8 inclusions and was part of Threshold, Bug, Team America, and Dark Horizons. Tarmogoyf would be reprinted again in the original Modern Masters 2015, and Modern Masters 2017. So far, paper copies of Tarmogoyf are currently going for the starting price of about $62. Number 11, Negate. The blue spell that was originally printed in Morningtide, Negate was a blue spell that counters a target non-creature spell for 1 blue and 1 generic mana. Negate has been reprinted a lot, which made its time in the Standard format quite long. In total, Negate received a total of 477 top 8 placings, with Negate being seen the most in blue control decks. It would also see play in the Modern format, where it acquired 89 top 8 placings and was seen in decks such as Jeskai, Blue Moon, Blue White, and different twin decks. Unfortunately, past that, it does not see any other significant play in the other formats, as it had a combined 11 top 8s between Extended and Legacy, and has had 0 top 8s in the Vintage format. Still, anytime that Negate gets printed, it gets used and included quite often. It was most recently printed in the set Battle Bond, along with being printed in the signature spellbook for Jace. It is also quite cheap, as you could get paper copies of Negate for about 10 cents each. Number 10, Ancient Grudge. Coming out of Time Spiral, Ancient Grudge is a red instant spell that destroys a target artifact and has the flashback mechanic. This was one of the few sideboard cards that could directly affect one of the most powerful deck styles, Affinity, since they have an abundant amount of artifact creatures. In the Standard and Extended format, this card was seen in 95 top 8 decks and was seen in many Kessick and different aggro strategies. It would also see its best performance in the Modern format, where it saw inclusions in 214 top 8 decks and were in strategies such as Valid Cut, Death Shadows, Jund, and even other Affinity decks for mirror matches. It also didn't stop it from seeing play in the Eternal formats. Between Legacy and Vintage, it was part of over 100 combined top 8s and mostly seen in Delver and Threshold, where it could hit the numerous low-cost artifacts rampant in these formats. Ancient Grudge was reprinted again in the Innistrad expansion and would see its most recent printing in Modern Masters 2017. As of right now, this card currently goes for about 25 cents. Number 9, Dismember. The last card on this list that came out of the new Phyrexia expansion, Dismember was a removal spell that gives a target creature -5/-5, essentially killing most creatures. It can also have most of its mana cost paid in life instead of other black mana. In the Eternal formats, it garnered 111 top 8 finishes between Legacy and Vintage, with Dismember being part of decks such as Merfolk and Canadian Threshold. However, Dismember would see its biggest impact in both Standard and Modern. In the Standard format, it gained 185 top 8 finishes and was included in practically every deck, since it could technically be paid with 1 generic mana and 4 life. It would also see inclusions in 174 top 8 Modern decks as an easy removal spell for most decks and could be seen in many different Tron-based strategies. It was only reprinted in one other set, which was Modern Masters 2015, but paper copies are currently going for about $4 each. Number 8, Spell Pierce. The blue instant spell that was printed in the ZENDIKAR expansion, this spell is able to counter a non-creature spell unless its controller pays 2 generic mana. While in some ways it's weaker than Negate, it is also cheaper and was used a lot in the early games. Between the Standard and Extended format, it was seen in 135 top 8 decks and was part of many control strategies. It was also included 89 top 8 modern decks, with it seeing the most play in Infect and Affinity as well. It wouldn't be until the Legacy format where this card would shine the most. Since the Legacy format contains many powerful low-cost non-creature spells, it became extremely effective against a number of strategies. Overall, between Legacy and Vintage, it was an inclusion of 223 top 8 decks and could be seen in a variety of decks like Stoneblade, Dark Horizons, Miracles, Delver, and Show and Tell. It was reprinted again in Modern Masters 2017 and recently in the set Ixalign, while also being printed as an invocation card in the Amonkhet expansion. It is also very cheap, as paper copies of this card go for about 15 cents per card. Number 7. Ponder. When Lorwyn was released to the public, it also saw the printing of the blue sorcery Ponder. For 1 blue mana, you could look at the top 3 cards of your deck and you could put them back in any order and drawing 1 card afterwards. As of right now, it is currently banned in the Modern format and restricted to 1 copy in the Vintage format. Between the non-Eternal formats, it was seen in a combined total of 133 top 8 decks and saw the most inclusion in numerous blue-white Delver strategies. It wouldn't stop there though, as it would gain lots of traction in the Eternal formats. For instance, in Legacy, it has the most amount of top 8s with a total of 237 and was run in pretty much any deck that had blue in it. It would also get 55 top 8s in the Vintage format and would be seen in Monastery and Jeskai decks. It would see reprintings in the core set Magic 2010 and in Magic 2012 and has the current price tag of around $2 per paper copy. Number 6. Wasteland. A card that was first printed in the Tempest set, Wasteland was a card that could not only produce generic mana, but also has the ability to be sacrificed to destroy a non-basic land. While it wasn't strip mine, it was still effective in land destruction. Between Standard and Extended, it was just under 50 top 8 inclusions and was seen in plenty of aggro-based strategies. Just like the previous 2 cards, Wasteland would see the most top 8s in the Eternal format Legacy. In Legacy, it was part of 289 top 8 decks overall and could be seen in Bug, Lands, and Death and Taxes. It would also get 66 more top 8s in the Vintage format, with recent inclusions being part of Ravager shops. It would also be printed 1 more time in Eternal Masters, while also being printed as a ZENDIKAR Expedition. As of right now, Wasteland is currently going for around $35. Number 5. Lightning Bolt. Originally printed in the first set Alpha, Lightning Bolt was a red card that had 1 red mana and could deal 3 damage to a target creature or player at instant speed. It was the original burn spell and would see many other red cards being based off of it. In its time in the standard scenes that it was in, along with seeing some inclusions in Extended, it was part of a combined 129 top 8s and was pretty much ran in every deck that included red. It would do its best in the Modern format, as it would see over 230 top 8 placements and could be seen in different burn strategies along with numerous other aggro decks. It would also bleed into the Eternal formats, where it saw 158 top 8 inclusions between Legacy and Vintage, as it was part of many Canadian Threshold and Delver decks. It saw printings in numerous core sets and was recently printed in both Modern Masters 2015 and Masters 25. Paper copies of Lightning Bolt can be bought now for about $3 each. Number 4. Force of Will. A pitch card that was printed in the expansion set Alliances, Force of Will is considered to be arguably the best counterspell ever printed. While it does have a mana cost of 5, it has the alternate casting cost of paying 1 life and exiling a blue card from your hand to counter a target spell. This is one of the reasons why it's better than the original counterspell printed in Alpha. In Extended and Standard, it would see 30 top 8 inclusions and was used a bunch in Oath of Druids decks. Force of Will, however, would see over 350 top 8 placements in the Legacy format, making it the second highest included card in that format. It would also be used in the other Eternal format, Vintage, where it would see another 35 top 8 finishes and was used in any deck that had the color blue. It only saw 1 more printing in an actual set, which came from Eternal Masters, but also saw a printing in Amonkhet as an invocation card. In the secondary market, the starting price for Force of Will currently goes for about $75. Number 3. Thoughtseize. Considered to be one of the best hand destruction spells ever printed, Thoughtseize, just like Ponder, was printed in the Lorwyn expansion. For 1 black mana, the target player reveals their hand and you choose 1 non-land card from it. That player has to discard the card, with the only drawback of you losing 2 life. This card has the most total top 8s in all 5 constructed formats at 633. In Standard, it saw 241 top 8 placements and was widely seen in decks such as Esper Control and more so in Abzan midrange. It would also see 237 top 8 placements between the Extended and Modern format, where it's part of Lantern Control, Jund, and Death's Shadows. It would even make an impact in the Eternal formats, where it would accumulate 155 top 8s between Legacy and Vintage, where it can be seen in Dark Horizons and Reanimator. It would see a reprinting in the Theros expansion, would be reprinted again in Iconic Masters, and, just like Force of Will, would be printed as an invocation card in the Egyptian-based Amonkhet set. On top of that, a paper copy of Thoughtseize is currently going for about $15. Number 2. Misty Rainforest. Printed in the first ZENDIKAR set, Misty Rainforest was a fetch land that could retrieve a forest or island and put it onto the battlefield for 1 life. While the fetch lands as a whole averaged around the 900s for their ability to get basic lands, the Ravnica shock lands, and the alpha dual lands, Misty Rainforest saw the most play overall. In the non-eternal format Standard, Extended, and Modern, Misty Rainforest was part of 261 top 8 finishes and was part of many different deck styles such as Birthing Pod, Scapeshift, Infect, and Bant as well. It would also see 251 top 8s in Legacy and another 45 Vintage top 8s overall. In Legacy, it was seen in Delver, Bug, Miracles, and even Elves decks as well. On top of that, fetch lands are widely used in the Commander format as a way to quickly fix your mana while also filtering down your deck. It would also be reprinted as a ZENDIKAR Expedition before being printed again in Modern Masters 2017, and currently Misty Rainforest has the price tag of about $45. Number 1. Brainstorm. The top performing card on our list was first printed in the set Ice Age. For 1 blue mana at instant speed, you're able to draw 3 cards, then put 2 cards on top of your library in any order. This card was extremely helpful in advancing and planning one strategy efficiently. Between Extended and Standard, it saw 45 top 8 finishes and was seen in a decent amount of Psychotog decks. In Vintage, it would see a much better performance run, even as a restricted card, where it was also involved in 88 top 8 decks and seen in Jeskai and Monastery. It would have its best numbers in the Legacy format, as it would obtain 355 top 8 placements overall and was seen in basically any deck that involved the color blue due to how cheap and effective Brainstorm is. It was printed in the set Mercadian Mask, 5th edition, Commander 2011, and had recent printings in Eternal Masters, Masters 25, and in the signature spellbook for Jace. It is also affordable, as each paper copy is going for as low as 50 cents. And that wraps it up for our top 100 best performing cards. What did everyone think of the list? Were there cards that we missed? Leave a comment down below to share your thoughts. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the Card Bazaar and hit that bell notification so you can be notified of more videos that we'll be producing in the future. Also, if you would like to support the channel, make sure you check out our Patreon link down below and become a patron today. It would be very much appreciated. That is all I have today, everyone. Coach over here signing out, and I will see you all next time.